David Grusch, a United States Air Force officer and intelligence official, along with other government officials, believe we are not alone in the universe. In fact, they claim the U.S. government has concealed remarkable discoveries for years. Have extraterrestrials truly been visiting and even spying on us for decades? Today, we'll explore this question, examining mysterious snapshots of inexplicable flying objects, official government reports, and a potential interview with an alien being, all providing compelling evidence of alien existence. Military testimonies on unidentified flying objects. In an event that took place in Washington, D.C. in July 2023, David Grusch, a retired Air Force intelligence officer and former Pentagon official, made a remarkable statement. He claimed that the United States has alien spacecraft and biological specimens that were not of earthly origin. What makes this revelation particularly significant is that Grusch testified before the U.S. Congress, and doing so required him to take an oath. This means that he made these claims under a promise to tell the truth, risking severe legal consequences, including charges of perjury, if he is found to be lying. During the hearing, Grusch made several other startling claims. He asserted that the United States has had unidentified flying objects or UFOs in its possession since the 1930s. He also revealed that there was the existence of secret U.S. programs spanning multiple decades which were aimed at collecting and trying to reverse engineer crashed UFOs. When questioned about whether the occupants of these UFOs were recovered, he disclosed that the Pentagon holds what he referred to as non-human biologics, though he did not provide specific details about what these entities are. Grusch also mentioned that he personally knows individuals who suffered physical harm while attempting to keep the government's possession of extraterrestrial technology a secret. However, he explained that he couldn't share any specific details except in a highly secure and classified environment known as a sensitive compartmented information facility. It is important to note that Grusch didn't claim to have personally witnessed the things he discussed. Instead, he relied on information provided by senior former intelligence officers who confided in him. He also mentioned that he had not seen any photographs of the supposed UFOs himself. Even though Grusch didn't have a ton of evidence to back up his claims, it's interesting to point out that there are other U.S. Armed Forces officials who have had their own encounters with UFOs. Two former Navy pilots, David Fravor and Ryan Graves, were right there alongside Grusch during the hearing. What Fravor had to say during his testimony was nothing short of fascinating. Fravor served as the commander of a squadron on the USS Nimitz when he had a remarkable experience. In 2004, during a flight off the Southern California coast, he spotted what he could only describe as a tic-tac-looking object. Around that time, a highly advanced radar system on another ship in their training group, the USS Princeton, had been picking up something unusual. Operators on the USS Princeton had been detecting what they called multiple anomalous aerial vehicles, AAVs, for several days. These AAVs were descending from 80,000 feet to much lower altitudes in a fraction of a second. Initially, the radar team on the USS Princeton suspected that there might be a technical glitch causing these anomalies. However, after thorough checks confirmed that their equipment was functioning correctly, they started noticing instances where these AAVs descended rapidly into more crowded airspace. And so on November 14, 2004, Fravor and another pilot named Alex Dietrich were in the midst of training with the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, about 100 miles southwest of San Diego. Suddenly, they received an unusual order from an operations officer aboard the USS Princeton, instructing them to halt their training maneuvers and head to new coordinates to intercept one of these strange objects. Fravor and Dietrich immediately changed course to investigate. As they arrived at the designated location, they couldn't see any flying objects in the sky. However, what caught their attention was a disturbance in the ocean below. The water was turbulent, with white waves crashing over what appeared to be a large object just beneath the surface. Then their attention was drawn to one of the objects, which was flying at an altitude of about 50 feet above the water. Fravor described it as roughly 40 feet long, resembling a tic-tac candy, and it didn't seem to have any obvious means of propulsion. What made it even stranger were its incredibly agile and erratic movements. Fravor likened it to nothing he had ever seen before. This object would zip around unpredictably, changing direction as if you had bounced a ping-pong ball off a wall. As Fravor circled around it in his aircraft, the object suddenly began to rise and approached his plane head-on. Then, out of nowhere, it executed a rapid turn and shot away at high speed. Astonishingly, it reappeared roughly 60 miles away in under a minute. Now, during this time, both Fravor and Dietrich had a weapons system officer in the back seat of their aircraft, so a total of 4 individuals witnessed this mysterious scene. Fravor explained that their encounter with this object went far beyond what we currently understand in terms of material science and our technological capabilities. This, according to him, applied not just to the time of the encounter, but also continues to challenge our understanding, even as we look ahead over the next 10 to 20 years. While Fravor himself couldn't record the encounter on video, another pilot named Chad Underwood, who took off after Fravor had landed, managed to locate the object. Using a highly sensitive infrared camera, Underwood successfully recorded video footage of the tic-tac-shaped object. The video would later become a big deal in the media, especially once the Navy verified that it was real. But here is the intriguing part. There wasn't a formal investigation conducted after the incident. When asked if there had been any additional reporting or a thorough investigation after what happened in 2004, Fravor revealed that it was pretty much just a standard debriefing and nothing more. It seemed like the US government intentionally kept evidence about these non-human aircraft under wraps, but it won't be for long. Between the summer of 2014 and March 2015, a series of bizarre sightings occurred high in the skies over the East Coast. These sightings included strange objects, one of which resembled a spinning top, and they appeared almost daily. Navy pilots reported these anomalies to their superiors, noting that these objects lacked visible engines or infrared exhaust plumes, yet they could reach heights of 30,000 feet and move at hypersonic speeds. Ryan Graves, who testified in the July 2023 hearing, explained that these mysterious objects were consistently present throughout the day. What is noteworthy is that the pilots began noticing these objects after their radar systems were upgraded from 1980s-era technology to a more advanced system. As each fighter jet received the new radar, pilots started picking up these objects on their screens. They initially dismissed them as false radar tracks. However, it was later realized that these objects were indeed real. Danny Acoin, a Super Hornet pilot from the same squadron as Graves, had 2 encounters with these mysterious objects. In the first instance, he spotted one on his radar and decided to fly his plane close to it, positioning himself just 1,000 feet below it. Strangely, even though his radar indicated the object's presence, he couldn't see it through his helmet camera. A few days later, Acoin's jet's training missile locked onto the object, and his infrared camera also detected it. However, he still couldn't visually spot it. At this point, the pilots began to speculate that these objects might be part of a classified and highly advanced drone program. However, their perspective underwent a significant shift after a particular incident occurred in late 2014. Here is what happened. Graves was at Virginia Beach Base when he met a squadron mate who had just returned from a mission wearing a look of shock. This pilot had an astonishing story to share. During their mission, the pilot and his wingman had been flying in tandem, maintaining a distance of about 100 feet apart over the Atlantic east of Virginia Beach. Suddenly, something flew between them, passing right by their cockpit. The pilot described it as resembling a sphere enclosing a cube. This close call left the squadron deeply shaken, prompting them to file an aviation flight safety report. The incident not only rattled the squadron but also convinced them that these objects couldn't be part of a classified drone program. They reasoned that government officials, well aware of the fighter pilots' training in the area, wouldn't send drones to jeopardize their safety in such a manner. In response to all these testimonies, especially Grusch's own, the Pentagon issued a statement where they denied the claims. According to the Pentagon, they have not come across any credible information that can support claims about the existence of programs dedicated to possessing or reverse engineering extraterrestrial materials in the past or present. NASA also weighed in, emphasizing that one of its primary goals is to explore the possibility of life beyond Earth. However, they stressed that up to now, they haven't found any convincing evidence of extraterrestrial life, and there's no proof that the objects in question are of extraterrestrial origin. ET de Vagina. Next up, we have a story that could easily be mistaken for a sci-fi flick, but it is anything but fiction. Back in January 1996, locals in Vagina, Brazil, witnessed a bizarre event. They saw an unusual cigar-shaped object, roughly the size of a school bus, descending from the sky and crashing into a field. Shortly after, the residents of Vagina were surprised when a large military presence arrived in the town, securing and blocking off several areas. A few days later, 3 women, aged 14 to 22, were walking through an empty area between 2 houses when they encountered a strange creature. They described it as having a large head. Its skin had vein-like patterns, and there were bumps on its head. Its eyes resembled 2 red balls. The creature, which would later be referred to as the ET de Vagina, appeared unsteady, leading the women to believe it might be injured or unwell. Frightened, they quickly left the scene and immediately reported their encounter to their mother, describing the creature as something similar to the devil. Afterwards, rumors started circulating in the region. Some folks reported seeing UFOs in the days leading up to these events. Then, things got even stranger. There were claims of more unknown creatures or extraterrestrials being taken to a hospital for examination. People spoke of more unidentified creatures wandering in a nearby forest and mysterious animal deaths happening in the local zoo. As time passed, UFO enthusiasts would suggest connections between these incidents and other unexplained phenomena. An official investigation led by the Brazilian military and concluded in 2010 offered a different explanation for the events. They claimed that the 3 young women had encountered a homeless and mentally unstable man known as Mudinho. The commander of the 24th Police Battalion military presented photographs of this individual, who appeared to have some mental disabilities. The man's physical characteristics matched the description given by the girls, suggesting that they mistook him for a space creature, likely because he was dirty due to heavy rains and seen crouching by a wall. Also, the head of the official inquiry reported that the military trucks and personnel observed in the area were merely performing routine duties on the night in question. As for the alleged aliens seen at a hospital, Brazilian authorities explained that they were, in fact, an expectant couple who had dwarfism. Despite these official explanations, many residents still maintain that the Brazilian military did, in fact, capture 2 alien beings and used intimidation tactics to silence the local population. Skinny Bob. Out of all the alleged videos purporting to depict extraterrestrial encounters on Earth, none is as unsettling as the short footage featuring an extraterrestrial entity known as Skinny Bob. This peculiar creature is characterized by its distinct features, including a bulging skull and large black almond-shaped eyes, which have become iconic in depictions of alien visitors. The video first surfaced back in 2011. It was shared by an anonymous Reddit user operating under the pseudonym Ivan0135. From the information provided, the footage was purportedly captured by the KGB following the landing of an unidentified spacecraft from the Zeta Reticuli star system on Russian soil. Skinny Bob was reportedly a member of a diplomatic mission from a planet located around 40 light-years away. Their purpose was to engage in discussions about topics of mutual interest. UFO enthusiasts believe that the Skinny Bob video shows a clear image of an extraterrestrial being. However, doubts have emerged regarding the video's credibility because the creature appears calm and shares some similarities with humans. Some skeptics argue that aliens could not contact us from a distance as far as 40 light-years away. According to Randy Sharp, a video effects artist, if this footage were a forgery, it would have demanded a level of proficiency and expertise in computer-generated technology that was beyond the capability of the average individual during its production. Remarkably, no one has made any attempts to profit from this footage, despite estimations from experts suggesting that its creation would have incurred costs in the vicinity of $250,000. Now, if Skinny Bob is indeed a hoax, It raises the question of who orchestrated this deception and what their motivations might have been. Now, it's time for today's subscriber pick. Humans have long been fascinated by the idea of alien beings from distant worlds. We wonder, will they look like us, or will they be something entirely different? Some imagine creatures with strange forms, multiple limbs, or unusual colors. Others think they might resemble us in basic ways. When it comes to technology, we can only guess. Some imagine advanced civilizations with incredible machines and knowledge far beyond our own. Others think they might be less advanced or even more primitive. So, what do you think aliens will look like? What kind of technology do you imagine they might have? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Belgium UFO Wave. At the end of November 1989, people in Belgium reported seeing a large, triangular-shaped object in the sky. It had lights underneath and was hovering, with many witnesses noting that it was flying at a low altitude. A few months later, on March 30, 1990, around 11 p.m., the supervisor at the Control Reporting Center in Glon received reports of 3 unusual lights moving toward Thorembay-Gembloux, southeast of Brussels. During this time, some witnesses claimed they could see the phenomenon from the ground, describing a formation of lights that stayed in their relative positions while slowly moving across the sky. In response to these reports, 2 F-16 fighter jets were dispatched to investigate the strange lights. During the next hour, the 2 F-16 fighter jets made 9 attempts to intercept the unidentified objects. They succeeded in locking onto them with radar 3 times. After a few more uncertain radar blips, the aircrafts eventually headed back to their base shortly after 1 a.m. Local police officers dispatched to verify the initial report described witnessing 4 lights arranged in a square pattern. These lights were making brief, erratic movements before gradually dimming and vanishing in 4 different directions. They also noted hearing a faint engine-like noise during this event. Approximately 13,500 people are believed to have witnessed this event, making it one of the most widely observed UFO sightings in recent times. Even though the Belgian Air Force couldn't provide a logical explanation for the strange activity, they acknowledged that something unexplained had occurred in the sky. They sought assistance from the UK's Ministry of Defence to investigate further, but when it was clear that the incident wasn't hostile or aggressive, they decided to halt the investigation. Rendlesham Forest UFO. More than 40 years ago, a profound and mysterious event unfolded on a chilly winter night. This occurred in Rendlesham Forest, located in Suffolk, England. Within the wooded confines of Rendlesham Forest lay RAF Woodbridge, a military airfield from World War II. During that period, it was under the control of the United States Air Force. And so, in the early hours of Boxing Day morning in 1980, personnel from the United States Air Force reported witnessing unusual lights descending into the nearby forest. At first, they thought the source of the light might be a crashed aircraft, so the men decided to check it out. As they entered the forest, they could hear animals from a nearby farm getting very agitated. Approaching the source of the commotion, they saw what they would later describe as a glowing object with colored lights. This object swiftly flew away towards the nearby coast. When they returned to the same spot at daybreak, they discovered a small clearing with 3 impressions on the ground, forming a triangular shape. They also noticed burn marks and broken branches on the trees around the area. 2 days later, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, the deputy base commander, joined the servicemen in the forest during the early hours. Halt would later document these events in a memo to the UK Ministry of Defence. He was taken to the clearing where they had seen the impressions on the ground earlier. To his surprise, Halt experienced similar incidents as those on Boxing Day. The farm animals were making a lot of noise, and a flashing light seemed to descend towards the group. Then, Halt witnessed 3 mysterious lights. They appeared star-like but were hovering just above the horizon, occasionally emitting beams of light. 2 weeks later, Halt forwarded his memo to the UK Ministry of Defence. Besides some unverified talk and speculation, the general public remained unaware of the incidents from December 1980. But during that same period, 2 men in suits approached a forestry worker named Vince Thurkettle. They started asking him numerous questions about whether he had witnessed anything on those particular nights. However, since Thurkettle didn't provide them with any useful information, the men eventually left. It took an additional 3 years for the U.S. government to release the memo to the public. When it finally became public knowledge, the story became a global sensation. Rendlesham Forest earned the title of the UFO capital of the UK, and this event inspired numerous books, TV shows, and articles. Riding on this newfound fame, the Forestry Commission even established a UFO trail in the forest, featuring a model of what the American servicemen claimed to have seen. However, the question remains, did the events witnessed on December 26 and 28, 1980 conclusively constitute an encounter with an extraterrestrial object? What are your thoughts on this? The Levelland UFO Incident. Levelland, a Texas city with a population of around 10,000 in 1957, witnessed an event that ufologists regard as one of the most remarkable in UFO history. What makes it stand out is the substantial number of witnesses who experienced this phenomenon within a relatively brief time frame. So, what exactly occurred? On the evening of November 2, 1957, the Levelland Sheriff's Office received a startling call. A distressed man reported that he and a friend were driving on a rural highway about 4 miles west of town when they witnessed an extraordinary event. They saw a massive rocket emerge from a field and zoom toward their truck. Filled with fear of an imminent collision, both men jumped out of the truck and jumped into a roadside ditch. As the UFO passed just above the truck, it created a thunderous blast, causing the vehicle's engine to stall and its lights to go out. After a few seconds, when the mysterious object disappeared from sight, the engine and lights came back to life. The sheriff's officers initially dismissed this story, not taking it seriously. An hour later, another person called in to share their experience with an identical UFO that had also disrupted the electrical systems in their car. The initial skepticism quickly faded as more reports poured in. Sheriff's officers began receiving similar accounts from scared witnesses who had encountered a massive UFO that emitted intense light and had the ability to disable car engines. These sightings occurred not only west of Levelland, but also to the east and north. Around 1:30 a.m., Sheriff Weir Clem and a deputy decided to investigate. They spotted a mysterious light approximately 300 yards ahead of them. Shortly after, Ray Jones, Levelland's fire marshal, encountered motor problems when he witnessed the same phenomenon. The Air Force's official explanation was ball lightning. But there's a problem with that explanation. Ball lightning typically doesn't grow larger than a few feet and is usually just a few inches in size. Project Blue Book, the Air Force project responsible for investigating UFO reports from 1947 to 1969, suggested that there might have been an electrical storm happening during the sightings. However, it is worth noting that there were no reported thunderstorms in the area on that particular night. Mysteries in the Texas sky. On August 25, 1951, a calm summer evening in Lubbock, Texas, a group of scientists from Texas Technical College gathered in the backyard of geology professor Dr. W.I. Robinson's home. They were sipping tea and engaged in a conversation about micrometeorites. Around 9:20 p.m., these university colleagues witnessed something truly extraordinary in the vast Texas sky, a V-shaped formation comprising 15 to 30 bluish-green lights passing overhead. While amazed, they approached the sighting with their scientific mindset, thinking that the lights might reappear. And indeed, about an hour later, the lights returned, this time in a less organized arrangement. With this, all the scientists agreed that they had observed something remarkable. However, the big question remained. What had they just seen? The professors weren't the only reliable witnesses to those strange blue-green lights that night. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, approximately 350 miles from Lubbock, an employee of the top-secret Sandia Corporation, which was part of the Atomic Energy Commission, was outside with his wife at dusk. They were admiring the night sky, remarking on its beauty when they were suddenly taken aback. They spotted a massive aircraft flying swiftly and silently over their home. What was particularly puzzling was that on the rear edges of the wings, there were 6 to 8 pairs of softly glowing bluish lights. About an hour later, Edward Ruppelt, a retired rancher from Lubbock, shared a disturbing sighting made by his wife. It was just after dark when his wife went outside to remove some sheets from the clothesline while he was indoors reading the newspaper. Unexpectedly, his wife hurried back into the house, clearly agitated. She was alarmed because she had witnessed a significant object moving rapidly and noiselessly over their home. She described it as resembling an airplane but without a visible body. What made it even more unusual were pairs of glowing bluish lights along the back edge of its wings. By the time Ruppelt arrived in Lubbock to investigate the sightings in late September, hundreds of residents had already witnessed these strange lights over a 2-week period. However, not everyone waited for the government to act. The Texas Tech professors, for instance, took the initiative and alerted local newspapers like the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. They began their informal investigation. In the weeks following their initial sighting on August 25, they and their friends observed the lights on 12 more occasions. They even took measurements of the lights' angles, made rough calculations of their speed, and consistently noticed that these lights always moved from north to south. Equipped with walkie-talkies, these scientists and their friends formed 2 teams, attempting to gauge the altitude of the UFO, although with limited success. As the days passed, an increasing number of Lubbock residents reported seeing these mysterious lights. When the professors compared these reports with their own observations and records, many details matched up. While not everyone had documented the phenomena as thoroughly as the professors, it became clear that something real was happening. Project Blue Book looked into these events and officially concluded that the lights were caused by birds reflecting the new street lamp lights in Lubbock. However, many witnesses who had seen the lights remained unconvinced, arguing that the lights were moving too fast to be birds. UFO over Chicago. While Chicago isn't typically associated with UFO sightings, O'Hare Airport became the center of a highly publicized sighting in November 2006. A flying saucer-like object was observed over Concourse C of the United Terminal. Witnesses included pilots, airline staff, and mechanics, with the first sighting reported by a United ramp worker around 4:30 p.m. Various witnesses described the object as dark gray, ranging from 6 to 24 feet in diameter. Some saw it spinning like a frisbee, while others noted it was not rotating at all. However, all witnesses agreed that the object was completely silent and appeared just below the 1,900-foot cloud cover before suddenly darting into the clouds, leaving behind a circular hole in the cloud formation. Interestingly, this hole appeared to close itself shortly after the object's departure. The object was not detected by air traffic controllers and did not register on radar. This incident gained significant attention from major media outlets and prompted a reevaluation of the UFO phenomenon, even though both the Federal Aviation Administration and the airline declined to investigate further. The Federal Aviation Administration labeled it as a weather-related event. However, Marc Rodeguier, the scientific director of the Center for UFO Studies, believes that the potential presence of an alien craft in their own vicinity is a mystery that deserves further exploration. UFO investigators have raised concerns about the FAA's decision not to investigate the incident, which they see as conflicting with the agency's responsibility to examine potential security breaches at American airports, as was the case at O'Hare. The Chicago Tribune reported that some witnesses expressed being upset over the federal officials' reluctance to conduct a more thorough inquiry. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.